Alright, so we're going to go over some of the basics of light and shadow and shading here. Some line weight as well. And that they become really, really kind of important. So, because they give your drawings depth and they stop looking like coloring books. So, if I've got a circle or a sphere, whatever, it could be a head even, is that what we've got to understand is when light hits a surface, shadows on the other side, and that we have a couple of things that are in play. Really advanced stuff, we're not going to go into, obviously, to any kind of detail, but there's things like core shadows, form shadows, light source, reflective light, cast shadows. Like I said, really advanced stuff. Excuse me. But for you, basic, just starting out, you got to understand line weight. So if light is coming from this direction, it's going to be thinner here and it's going to be thicker here. And see how already that starts making this circle not look like a flat coloring book anymore. It looks like, a circle. It's starting to have depth to it. And so the closer the light, think about a flashlight hitting like a basketball or something like that. The closer the light gets, the farther the shadow goes away. The farther the light goes away from the surface, the more shadow we get. And shadows are going to take on the form. That's where form shadows come from. Of the contours that you have. So we'll say that my light is reasonably close, but there's going to be my shadow. And reflective light is when light hits the surface, like if this is my ground, it's going to hit and bounce off of it. So that's going to cast a kind of secondary light source. So if it's bouncing off, my shadow is actually going to be kind of like this. And I'll fill that in. And then I'll feather it out. Like so. And then my cast shadow, it works almost like a triangle. So it's going to go from here to where my ground is. Then here to where my ground is. And then it kind of comes from here. And there's my cast shadow. Like so. So with really kind of any of our shapes, we can do a square. One point perspective kind of square. And again, light coming from the side. Line weight. Always heavier away from it. And again, thinking about that light getting closer to the surface, it's going to start off heavy here and then get lighter with a lighter touch. Heavy, light, heavy, light. It's going to be the lightest because that's closest to the light source. So it's a lighter touch to it. And, cell shading is that if it's hitting here, this side, which we can't see, is what's getting a lot of the light. This will get some light and this will get some light. So we can just kind of shade it off like this. I can feather it out. And this is also why it's really important to be able to break things down into their basic shapes, cars, guns, all that kind of stuff. Human form, all that kind of good thing. It's because, see, I'm just shading basic shapes, and applying line weight and cast shadow and form shadow. And that's the basics of all you really need. Like I said, you can every now and then you can add in reflective shadows. That gives it a nice kind of look to it, an interesting sort of look. Makes it look that much more dimensional to it, but not necessary all the time. Not certainly if you're just trying to learn how this works. So being able to break things down to their basic forms allows you to draw your humans or figures, and then understanding how light hits those basic forms. So light hits on one side, shadows on the other side of it, and so yeah, line weight is thickness of line. It's heavier on the opposite side of the light source. You don't necessarily have to draw the arrows. It's just to kind of show you guys how it works. But that's basically how it kind of works in the most basic of forms. But yeah, light source, form shadow, cast shadow, and that's what allows you to create depth to your illustrations.